So that was one of the first songs I ever learned. One of the first ballads. In fact, I was a sophomore at NOCA, and one of my old teachers there asked me to play it for Ellis Marsalis when he was getting a stamp by the U.S. Post Office. I played it, and after the thing was over, he said, "Man, sound good. You know the lyrics to that song?" And I said, "No." I was only playing jazz for about a year. I didn't know jazz had lyrics. I wasn't listening to singers. So he looked at me, and with that Marsalis look, he looks at me and a smile. Learn the effing lyrics. And then he walks off. So I'll never forget that song because of that story. There's a snippet of the song that's like da 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 da. And I was trying to say well, the name of the game for me was to kind of make sure, try to keep that as a thread sporadically throughout the tune, even when you're playing the melody.
So you picked this little fragment. And you're like, I'm going to sprinkle it everywhere.
Yeah, and that'll be the bird. That'll be the imagery. That's what's going on in my mind. There's a bird that's whistling that. And different types of birds whistling that in different registers. And I just kind of went from there. And I knew that once I got to the bridge, it was going to be in some sort of time that was consistent. You know.
Before then, you were just rubato.
Before then, I was just playing. Yeah. I was rubato. And then finally, when I hit the bridge, I knew I was going to go into time there. And then I was going to probably do a half. I knew after I played the melody, I would take a half and then go out of time after the bridge and then modulate to a weird key at the end. That was the format and the frame that I wanted to kind of develop and use before I played.
And you were putting that bird in different registers, in different keys?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you were. I heard a couple of different keys in different places.
Mm-hmm.
And then, what key did you end in?
The last chord was an A.
Okay. But you had built up to something else.
I was in E flat. So I did something like, and I did something E7,
yeah,
A major,
yeah,
you know, and just ended it that way.
Oof.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you hearing that in the moment, or is that part of your arrangement that you work out?
That was kind of, once I had the basic frame, everything that happened inside of it was in the moment. You know, but I knew those elements that I talked about. I knew that was how it was struck. That was the form that I would use. And what happened in between that was kind of like, okay, oh, I didn't mean to play that. How am I going to get out of here? Or, you know, I think that's an element that I find in a lot of the people that I love listening to, is that there's an overarching form, not just the tune form, but how the orchestration and how they structure,
Yeah.
you know, even their solos, the certain devices that they use and when they use it, you know, some of that I think is so ingrained in them that they do it automatically. Some of them I think really worked really hard at developing these types of things in these moments. When is this going to happen? I'm going to do this here, you know. But I find that a lot of the masters that I listen to have this structure.
Who's an example of that for you? Like when you're thinking about ballad players, people who can interpret ballads like this, that have that ability, who are you talking about?
One person that comes to mind automatically, and this is very different from the style in which I played in, but Errol Garner's one.
Totally.
That had like a specific formula, and like every time he played a song, this is how he played it. You know, first chorus is like, it's always some weird intro, and then he'll do something depending on the tempo. He'd be like, or he'll be like, oh, teach me tonight. You know, something that sets up the time when we go into time. You know what I mean? He'll always do something like that. He'll play the melody and the octaves, and then he'll have some kind of a exit point that breaks into a solo where it's single lines of the second chorus. Third chorus will always be like some kind of octave thing or a shout out.
Some big thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of like his general thing.
You ever seen video of him playing these arrangements too? He's like directing the rhythm section
Yeah.
as he's doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because all they got to do is just look at his body language.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's all they could do because he wasn't going to tell them what song they were playing until the first note. You know what I mean? You could see them like, what song is this? And they're like, you know. But if you go like to somebody like Bill Evans is the same. You know, he'll have like certain formulas depending on the tune that he'll kind of go to. You know, he'll start, you know, maybe the melody will be some kind of block chorded thing. You know, and by like the third or fourth chorus, he's really into it. The climax of the peak is in like his third chorus. He starts jabbing the left hand. You know, with all of these accents and you know, you do stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
By like the second or third chorus, he's there and he's done. These people don't take longer than 3-4 choruses on these recordings. You know what I'm saying?
You know, what's interesting is both those musicians you mentioned too, they're using, I think in a way that you do, they're using textures as the arranging device. So
Absolutely.
like they're messing with how dense everything is all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Keith,
Yeah.
you know,
Totally.
one of the supreme, you know, arguably one of the supreme improvisers is another one that has formulas and devices and things that he uses, even in his solo sets. There's certain elements and certain styles that he'll kind of grab from. Maybe start free and then go into some sort of, you know, Americana thing and then play a little ballad. And then, you know what I'm saying? And even the way he structures ballads and the way he structures tunes, like his intros. If he plays a long intro, he's going to do a short outro. If he does no intro at all, he'll do a long outro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, you have all of these different devices that you're using to kind of keep you from feeling like you're starting from a blank canvas every time you play. You know? And so if you go into the fight with a plan, it makes it a little bit easier for you, and then you just kind of let the music take you where it takes you.
We were talking a little bit about this earlier, though. It's interesting because I think people, when they think about jazz or improvised music, they think like, what do you mean a plan? You know, like, aren't you supposed to just be making this up on the spot? But I think it's a great point, probably worth repeating, that oftentimes there is some kind of a plan.
Oh, absolutely.
Or a big picture idea of what you want to say.
There's a video of Nat King Cole doing T for Two. And the video is like two separate recordings, 2 different nights. I think it might be even months or even a year apart or something like that. And he plays the exact same solo. Maybe a few variations. But for the most part, the solo is exactly the same. You know, I've been thinking a lot about that lately. You know, just the idea of even writing out a solo. I mean, big band era, people like Clark Terry writing out his solo. When in the big band era, they only had like 8 or 16 bar breaks in their solos.
Yeah.
And they had to play the solo every night because that would trigger dance movements. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So dancers have to be able to dance with what's happening. So they was like, okay, we have to write this out because this is where the background's coming in. This is what I need to do in order to soar over that. This is what devices and plans and ideas. All of that stuff is very. You'll find it more and more and more as you study. I'm under the impression that what we do isn't improvisation as much as it is composing, and improving, not improvising. So we're constantly improving on an idea, the idea that came before, our improvement or opinion on the melody. All of these things are part of it too.
It's so evident in your playing because, as we were you took that bird and moved it around, but I hear this often when you get deeper into your improvisations. And it's inspiring to me because I like to also get an idea from somewhere else that's happening already.
Mm-hmm.
And I can hear you playing around with it. It's almost like a kid that picks up a ball and you're like, oh, okay, we do this and we can toss it up against the wall and you could put it behind your back but it's the same ball.
Right.
And I can in your solos as a listener,
Mm-hmm.
it's really satisfying because I can hear you working these three themes and just exploring and like we're going on this journey together. I think
that's the element. That's an element that I love about Monk.
Totally.
And Duke Ellington. It's like you have Louis Armstrong, the great masters of what we call improvisation. Is that what you learn is that you don't really need a whole lot of materials in order to create. It's actually harder the more things that you have. You know what I mean? It's like Cecile told me this one time. She was like, look, if you have a pencil and a piece of paper, it's much easier to draw than if you have markers and pastels, watercolors, and colored pencils, and paint and construction paper. If you have all of these materials, it's like, okay, what am I going to do with all of this stuff? So it's harder the more information that you have to actually create something. So it's better to have a limited amount of material to create the world.
I know it seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But if you embrace that, you can get a lot of juice out of that.
Absolutely. You'll learn a lot about yourself too.
Yeah.
Certain things certain ideas that you kind of lean towards, and some ideas that you like, I hate when I do that. Let me see if I can change that. If I did this, would that sound better?
Can you give an example of how you would use a limited amount of material to create a world? Can you play something for us where it's like you can demonstrate grabbing onto something?
On this tune?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take the first two notes of Skylark. So you could just do a whole thing just off that one note.
And the best part is you didn't have to think of anything.
That's not the information's already there.
Yeah.
Just take it through the chords and use
man.
like I say, use the chords as a grid to kind of take you. But all you need is just a small piece and repetition. Repetition is the answer to a lot of problems.
Yeah.
It's a great lesson that how you play is more important than what you play often.
Amen.
So I wonder if you can go into that a little bit, because when you just did that example of just those first two notes, There's two notes.
Yeah.
Anybody can do that, but
Mhm.
like, how are you expressing yourself through those two notes? You know what I mean? Like, how are you playing it?
I don't want to say this. I feel like most of it is intent. So it's not, I mean, I think Cyrus said something on one of these things. He said, play what you mean.
Yeah.
Mean what you play.
Yeah.
You know, like, what is it exactly that you're trying to convey to the people? And if you're trying to convey that, okay, I got a lot of chops and I can do a lot of stuff, then that's all they'll remember and that's all they'll feel. And at a certain point, that becomes fleeting because everybody's waiting for the next thing that you do to impress them. You know what I mean? But if you can figure out something that's intangible that they can feel, you know, and there's certain musical elements that I feel like can really draw these things and exaggerate these things to the point where it reaches to the back of the room. One is dynamics. Two is repetition. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. It could be something very, very, very small.
Could you give us an example of like dynamics or repetition that?
So like in following, I mean, in dynamics meaning like if you're in the dynamic, following the line. So like if a note is repeated, if somebody calls your name twice, what does that sound like?
Yeah.
You know, does it sound like Sullivan? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Usually they get louder on the repeated note. You know what I mean? And then as the line moves up, it gets louder, right? Down. Down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You're following the geography.
You follow the geography of the melody,
Yeah.
right? And then I think the emotional elasticity of time, the emotional rhythm. You know what I'm saying? Like if you did see what I'm saying? There's a rhythm that happens there's an innate rhythm that's built into the line itself. And if you can tap into that, that can bring another type of that can carry another type of emotional baggage. You know, this type of ballad isn't like what we consider like a walking ballad or like, you know, something that's, you know, not all ballads have to be that. You can play a whole thing completely rubato and it'll be fine. You know what I mean? You can kind of go in and out of time, you know, at your leisure when you're playing solo piano. When you're with a band, it's a little bit different. That means you have to cue and you have to do all kinds of things. But I guess the point is not to be stuck in one way of playing anything. You know, there's no right way. But there's no correct way, but there is a right way, if that makes sense. And that depends on your intent and how you feel and how much of it you're able to convey to the people that's listening.